First of all, let me say a heartfelt thank you to everybody who has participated in my little meme so far. You will have seen it if you haven't done your video yourself yet. You will have seen it, the video where people sit in front of the camera, they basically tell you their username, they tell you what they would like to be called or what they call themselves, and then they basically declare that they will not hate and they are not afraid. And the response has been overwhelming. Now obviously, coming from my little background and the sort of people that I associate with here on YouTube, it is understandable that an awful lot of the responses came from atheists and agnostics and people like that, because most of my subscribers, or many of my subscribers, would be atheists or agnostics. But we've had great responses from other people as well. We've had great responses. We've had at least one Muslima, as far as I know. We've had at least 2 Christians, if not more. We've had a number of Buddhists. We've had a Taoist. We've had a Deist. We've had, I don't know how many different types of people. And that is exactly what I wanted to achieve. So if you've been thinking about this and you are, for example, a Muslim or a Christian, or somebody who's not part of my little clique here, then I can only ask you that if you have already been thinking about it and you are kind of tempted to do a video and you've been hesitating, please don't. Please show that we have support from all the areas here on YouTube, that it's not just one little community making this statement, but that it's a community-wide thing that we can all stand behind. Because after all, it is about hatred for that which is different to us, from that which we don't understand or that we find maybe somewhat threatening. And that is of course also what the I am not afraid bit is about. This is about, I see you as a human being just like I am, and I will not hate you, nor will I be scared of you for no good reason. Of course, that is what a lot of people maybe misunderstood, or not a lot of people, actually a lot of people did not misunderstand this at all. They got the message loud and clear and they ran with it. But a number of people have been pointing out what effectively are very fair comments and that I need to reply to. People pointing out things like, but I hate hatred, for example. Is it not reasonable to hate bigotry, and so on and so forth? Yes, but obviously that's not what I was driving at with my little meme. My meme is about hating the other, the people that are not part of your own group, your own kin, your immediate kin, and that seem strange and odd and unusual to you, that you might feel a little bit threatened by, just because they are different to you. That is what this was about. And that is the hate that I'm rejecting. That you might hate Brussels sprouts is an entirely different, issue really. The 2 words might both be hate, but it's a very different emotion. You hate bigotry, even that is not the same emotion. This is not an overwhelming desire to see somebody else hurt, killed, or suffer. That is what I understand hate to be, and that is what I am so vehemently rejecting in this little initiative. And that is what I think most people took away from it as well, and that is what I am so delighted to see everybody responding to so positively. This was absolutely great. So please, if you are a Muslim watching this, if you are a Christian watching this, especially those 2 groups, because I know I'm no saint and I have been banging my heads, with these people in the past, and I will do so in the future on a philosophical and intellectual level, but I will never hate people for what they are, and that's what this is about. So if you are a Muslim or a Christian, please respond in kind, because that is what I'm trying to achieve here. A universal declaration across this site where we all reject this rabid hatred of each other just because we don't understand each other, because we don't feel the same about issues than the other. By all means, we will always disagree on such things. But does that mean we need to hate each other? Of course not. And that's what this is about. That's why I started this, and that's why I'm so delighted to see that so many people have actually taken part in this already. And I hope that this by no means has started fizzling out yet. I hope that this thing has legs, because I'm sure that there are more than 100 people in this world who don't want to go around spending their whole life hating other people just because they are not the same as them. Of course, there are people who think they are legitimately in their rights to hate, and those are the most difficult people to deal with. People who present quasi-intellectual arguments for their bigoted hatred. No doubt you will be aware of why I started this in the first place. If not, I will explain it happily. You will have seen the videos that Thunderfoot might have posted, that Thunderfoot has posted in the last week or two, in which he basically goes off into orbit over perceived threats from Islam, from the Muslims around the world. Now obviously those threats are pretty much imaginary. Don't get me wrong, because I know people will have just listened to that and will have burst a blood vessel, thinking, how can he deny what happened on 9/11? How can he deny what happened? Blah 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 blah. I am not denying those things. They did happen. Who was not behind it was the Muslims. What? Muslims weren't behind it? Yes, Muslims were behind it. The Muslims weren't behind it. You see the small but very important difference there. Muslims are people who happen to have the Islamic faith, but they're all individuals. The Muslims is starring 1.2 billion people all with the same brush. That the people who attacked the Twin Towers on 9/11, who attacked Madrid and London, were Muslims is undeniably true, but they were not the Muslims. They were just Muslims. And of course I know that people will point at the Quran and point at all the verses in there that might, call for violence and whatnot. Check out your Bible for a second and look what that has to say about non-believers. As OG Jimbo so clearly pointed out, and he made a very good point, the two books are not really that different in their belligerence, in their hatred towards the non-believer, the infidel, or whatever you want to call it. But somehow Christians, by and large, worldwide, don't seem to be quite as aggressive, as violent, as we have in recent years been seeing coming out of the Muslim world. Now, if the two books aren't that different, then what is the actual difference between the two groups of people? Maybe it's the way they perceive their relationship, their current relationship with the rest of the world. That's the real underlying problem. And what are the factors at play there. It is not just Islam says this in the Quran and therefore we go and attack the Twin Towers. Why did Osama bin Laden again attack the Twin Towers? Not because it said in the Quran attack the Twin Towers, but because he felt that his religion was under attack from the United States, rightly or wrongly. Wrongly, of course. But that is the underlying rationale behind this terrorism. The real or perceived threat that they are feeling from us is prompting some of them into this spiral of violence, hatred and attacks on us. And if we start putting ourselves in a position where we separate ourselves from them and we declare ourselves to be feeling threatened and attacked by them, the natural next step is of course to become more and more belligerent, more and more aggressive towards them, until a few of us will lose their marbles altogether, and then some of them will not just sit there and make crazy videos in which they accuse 1.2 billion people of all being rabid, terrorist, hate-filled monsters, but they will actually pick up arms and go attack innocent Muslims in the street. Is that what we want? Because I, for one, will not tolerate anybody pretending they're doing this on my behalf. This is not going to happen in my name. Ever. So, before you tell me that hate is justified, please think about who you're hating. Because by all means, feel justified in hating somebody who's sitting behind the controls of a plane and aiming it towards a tower. But don't just hate the Muslims because some of them did exactly that. Hate individuals if you must, because of what individuals are doing on an individual basis. Some of people also pointed out that, for example, can I not deny that the way women are being treated in the Islamic world is abhorrent? Even if I were to grant that, and I'm not 100% sure that granting that is completely justified, but let's for a moment assume that it is, and abuse of women is indeed more endemic in the Islamic world and more widespread than it is over here. In all fairness, I think that over here we may just be able to hide it better. But let's say it's true. Do you honestly think that in a population of 1.2 billion people there have never been any real romances between a man and a woman? That there never have been people within that huge, enormous human community that fell in love and that spent their life together in happiness? So even if such things as the abuse of women is more widespread in the Islamic world and it is more endemic, when you meet an individual Muslim, you might still want to keep in mind one of those great pillars of our democracy, of our Western society that we are so proud of. And that is this one thing that we tend to hold sacred, this thing about being innocent until proven guilty. You might want to apply that also when you're dealing with those Muslims that you are so weary of and that you are so suspicious of. By all means, when a Muslim proves that they are a nasty piece of work, that they are fundamentalist, radical, or a abuser of their wife, by all means, then judge them on that basis. But judge them because they are doing such things, and not because in the overall Islamic world you believe that things such as the abuse of spouses is more widespread. Individuals should be treated on an individual basis, no matter what label is attached to them. And that was what this whole thing is about. None of this blanket hatred of groups of people, just because they are something that we don't necessarily approve of. I will not hate, and I am also not afraid. I'm not afraid of Islam. I'm afraid, of course, of individual crazy people who do desperate things. But I'm not afraid of Islam. And that's what this was about. I will not hate, and I'm not afraid.